Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. Today we are talking about the newest addition to SnowiKs, that being Fire King. Fire King has been dominant in both the TCG and most notably in the OCG for quite some time alongside SnowiKs, and has been a top tier contender just in general. It is a great engine and is a overall fun deck with the new cards. Now notably, what do the new cards do? Starting off with SnowiKs. SnowiKs just allows you, when a monster that was originally fire is destroyed by battle or card effect, it special summons itself from a hand or grave, and then, on top of that, on summon, destroys a Fire King, from your deck. Just destroys it, puts it into the grave, which is great, because it can trigger a bunch of other cards. Then it also gains attack until the end of that turn for that destroyed cards, or for half of that destroyed card's attack. Very good. It becomes big, it special summons itself, it also is able to trigger the other Fire King's effects, which we'll get into in a second. Very good boss monster. We also have Kieran, which is the most notable card, because it says, during your main phase, destroy one other fire type monster, or fire monster you control, in your hand or face-up field, and if you do, special summon this card. Now, this is very good because it is a quick effect during the main phase, which allows you to dodge effects. That's right, if your opponent were to activate something like Imperm on your SnowiKs Ash, which, it only being at 1, is way more important to resolve, you can just say no. You can just be like, no, instead, that is going to resolve, and I'm going to dodge that effect, which is very, very useful. On top of that, when it is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Fire King monster except itself from hand or grave in order to pop, and then pop a card, which is really, really good. Now, notable, two things. One, it doesn't target what monster it is summoning because it can also summon from the hand. Therefore, your opponent can't, called by preemptively and hit the card, because, again, you could just summon from the hand or what have you. They could called by and called by your only target, but it's less likely to happen. And two, and more importantly, it's a non-target pop on resolution, which means if your opponent allows the summon effect to resolve, they're losing a card. Or you could just pop one of your own cards and potentially get additional advantage due to the Fire King cards. Fantastic. Great card. We're playing 3 of it. We're also only playing 1 SnowiKs because you can search it. We'll explain that in a second. Next up, we're playing Arvada. 1 Arvada. What does this card do? It's a monster negate. That's it. You just destroy a fire type monster, or a fire monster in hand or field, except itself, and then you negate a monster effect. Very useful. On top of that, if it's destroyed, you can target a Fire Beast, Beast Warrior, Winged Beast, aka all of the Fire King stuff, in order to just special summon it with its effects negated, and then destroy it during the end phase. This can trigger things like the Kieran to potentially destroy a card your opponent controls. It could also just be a guy to put on the field, which you could then use as link material, or whatever it may be. Fantastic. And then the last monster is SnowiKs. Now, to be fair, this is not new. SnowiKs is. All 3 of the other monsters are new, and we'll talk about the other new monster as well in a second. But yeah, all of these are the new ones, and they're all very, very useful. Next up, we have SnowiKs. On normal or special, you can add a Fire King spell trap. Pretty easy. If a monster, if a monster that was originally fire is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then on top of that, during the standby phase, if this card was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, add it to your hand. That's a mandatory effect. You just have to add it to your hand. So there's that. But all in all, 3 very good effects. Now, what are you searching with SnowiKs? You're searching Fire King Sanctuary. Why? Because this card says, when it's activated, place a Fire King Island face up, and it gives protection from card destruction. That's it. Also, it has a Fire Exe type effect. We'll get into that if we actually, well, I'll talk about that effect later. But for the most part, this never comes up, especially since we're not playing the Fire Exe. Next up, we have Fire King Island, which just says you can, during your main phase, destroy a monster from your hand or face-up field, or field, and then, yeah, destroy a monster from hand or face-up field, to then add a Fire King monster from your deck to your hand. Now, notably, destroying a fire allows you to search out SnowiKs and then freely special summon it, because it was searched and then it was in the hand to meet the activation requirement, because OCG rulings and stuff like that. Anyway, so that's how that works. Pretty cool. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard or banished, it destroys all of your monsters. Now, notably, that's why there's a protection effect on the Fire King Sanctuary. There's one other card that we are playing for the SnowiKs search, and that is Fire King Sky Burn, which just targets Fire King cards you control and cards your opponent controls, and then pops them. Just pops all of them. Very, very useful. Allows you to get additional disruption. Allows you to play around Max C a little bit better, because you can go like normal summon Ponix after a Max C or something like that. You know, special summon Ponix, what have you. Grab up the Skyburn, and now you have additional interaction. Very useful. Anyway, that's basically it for the Fire King stuff. There is one other card that is new, and that is the Garunix Eternity, which basically just says, when Xyz summoned, nuke the field. Then on top of that, you can detach a material to pop a spell trap, and if it's destroyed, while it has material, you special summon up to the number of materials you had, Fire King monsters from the grave, which is very, very useful. Just a solid card. We're not playing it because it requires 2 8s, and the only 2 8s that we're playing are the Kirin and the Garunix, and technically Flomberg as well, but most of the time, you're just more likely to just go into Link monsters. It's just better overall, and Garunix is a boss monster in and of itself. You don't really need to play this. You could, absolutely. I think this is not a terrible inclusion, but I feel like most of the Link monsters are just more useful. But that's basically it. As for the rest of the cards, we're playing a bunch of hand traps, 2 Veiler, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash, 3 Imperm, the 1 Nibiru, 2 Called by and Crossout. We're also playing the standard Snake Eye at this point, the 1 Ash, the 1 Oak, the 1 Birch. I think Birch is pretty useful. I've had it come up quite a few times. This could also be the 2nd Oak, depending on which one you want. We're playing 3 Poplar, we're playing 3 Diabellstar, we're playing the 1 Flomberg. I was originally playing 2. It tended to be a brick, but it comes up very often where having the 2nd one is very useful. But due to the Garunix, you kind of have 2 of those boss monsters, so it's nice to kind of have at least options no matter what. But yeah, having 2 is not bad. It's a little bit more inconsistent because you're more likely to draw it, but overall, still fine. We're also playing 2 of the original Sin, 3 Bonfire, and then, of course, the 1 Wanted and the 1 Field Spell. And that is it for the deck. I'm playing 41. There's not really a card I wanted to cut. Like, you could cut a Veiler, but I like it. I think it's pretty good. I think the 41st card was something like the 3rd Poplar or something along those lines. You could also potentially cut a Kirin. I think the 3rd Kirin is very nice, so there's that. As for the extra deck, this is where I'm not quite sold on every single piece of the puzzle here with the extra deck. The main deck I'm pretty sold on, but yeah, the 15 card extra could maybe be a little bit better. You could play potentially a wide variety of different links. You could play the rank 8, you could play Baron, you could play a myriad of other things. So there's that. But we have ourselves Link, Karibo, and Anima. These 2, I think, are very, very nice. Anima, in particular, is very nice. Nobody plays around Anima, so, again, it becomes a lot better. We have ourselves at Phoenix. And, yeah, these 3, I think, are pretty standard. Obviously, we have Hita, IP Masquerena, we have SP, we have Selene. Selene's very good. I think this is a pretty easy inclusion. We have the Promethean Princess, we have Apollosa, we have Axis Code Talker. This is kind of a new inclusion, but I think it's a lot more useful with the access of like Garunix and stuff like that. It's not too useful. This is definitely cuttable, but I think it's pretty easy to include. Then we have the Zelantis and the Raging Phoenix, and then we also have the Sunlight Wolf and Heat Soul. So notably in this, I have 2 separate end boards that you can basically go for. You can go for either the Raging Phoenix end board, or you can go for the Heat Soul end board. They do very different things, but the Heat Soul is allowing you to draw cards. It draws 2. While also basically doing similar things with the Promethean Princess and what have you. So it can be a little bit more useful. The draw 2 is very good just in general, adding recursion or adding hand traps or something like that. Whereas the Raging Phoenix allows you to go for the OTK on the follow-up a little bit more easily. And that's kind of it with the 2 different end boards. Obviously, you can put like IP Masquerena and SP Little Knight into those rotations with the field spells and stuff like that. So it's not too different, but it's kind of like, are you either ending on the Raging Phoenix or the Heat Soul for your Link monster? And I prefer the Heat Soul. Now, you could also cut this guy and the Sunlight Wolf and instead play something like Pit Knight early as well, and then go for like an IP Masquerena Pit Knight early, which gives you a negate, as well as going into an SP or something along those lines. So it's all kind of up to you. The extra deck is definitely more up in the air. But that's going to be it for this. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Is it the best deck? Alright, so here we are going first with more or less the hand that you're expecting to see. A Poplar and a Diabellstar. Pretty good. So we're going to grab up the field spell here, and then we're going to go for the Diabellstar, put the Poplar into the back row, and grab up our original sin. We're going to activate the effect here in order to grab up ourselves the Flomberg, and I knew that they had the Max C, so I was just kind of waiting for that. I'm going to actually summon out the SnowiKs here, which may seem a little bit strange, but we're going to go for the Sanctuary here, and we're just going to set one. But yeah, with the Skyburn, this is 2 interruptions, whereas normally it would have been 1 with just the Veiler. So yeah, that's kind of why we do that. And this is where, like, you see Skyburn actually being useful in Max C formats. Anyway, my opponent is going to go for the Bonfire into Poblar, which is kind of strange, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. And we're going to go and summon out the Flomberg. Now, notably, my zones, I did actually play around the Anima. I just didn't play around it very well, because, yep, out comes Flomberg, and you'll see that that immediately gets punished. So, yeah, should have put the SnowiKs here. Out comes Anima. I have to interact with that. I kind of decide... I don't know if this is necessarily better. I go for the Skyburn here, popping the SnowiKs as well as popping the Anima. Was this the best option? Maybe not. It may come back to bite me, but yeah, we're going to go like this. Out comes the Hydrant, and okay. The way that they have played this, to me, says most likely that they have something like an Airlifter in their hand, they have something like a... something normal summonable off of this HQ that specifically allows the Hydrant protection to be there. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to negate the Hydrant here. They just send it to the graveyard for the second Hydrant and then grab a guy. And I was like, oh, they just had nothing. I could have just waited and it would have been fine. So I ended up getting punished there. Just trying to, like, outplay my opponent. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, my opponent's going to shuffle back 4 in order to draw cards. They went for the Alert, I believe, to grab up, what did they grab? Turbulence. Anyway, out comes Poplar. Poplar doesn't search anything, which is kind of interesting. I guess they'd already used that effect, right? Yeah. Anyway, out comes Promethean Princess. At this point, I'm just kind of like hoping that they play into the Flomberg. They hadn't up until this point, so there's that. But out comes Raging Phoenix, and then they go into Zelantis, and I'm like, okay, sure. Still a little confused as to what we're doing here. And then they go and activate the Zelantis, and notably, Diabellstar is the first card that they decide to summon, and they special summon it in face up. You can put that face down. That's a thing you can do. But yeah, that's gonna come back to bite them. They also summon the Poplar and Flomberg all in attack or all in face up. Don't know why. They're just actively throwing. Anyway, out comes the Hydrant. They're gonna pop the Diabellstar, and I'm like, again, you're targeting the wrong card. But sure. Yeah, what have you. Anyway, Poplar is going to search here, and we're going to set the Wanted here as well. And then out comes the Promethean. Promethean is going to co-link itself. And then I believe they just go to battle, or something silly like that. I actually pitched the wrong thing. I don't know why, in any capacity, I would not have just pitched the Fire King Sanctuary here. This seems a bit silly, but that actually does come back to help me quite a bit here. So my opponent is going to pop 2 cards. They pop the Flomberg as well as the Field Spell, and they had the Called By. Because of course they did. They could have definitely, at the very least, done a lot more damage. They also didn't activate the effect of the Raging Phoenix Engrave. Like, they could have just put that on their field and then had an additional guy, but they just chose not to. So there's that. Anyway, Poplar's effect is going to activate, putting the Poplar into the back row. I'm not out of this by any stretch of the imagination, though it may seem that way with how much more they have left, right? They can go Turbulence and get to set 4, which is very strong. But we do have the SnowiKs coming back. We have access to the Original Sin. We also can go like Wanted to shuffle back an Original Sin to get something off of that with the Poplar. We have the Fire King Sanctuary to get into the Fire King Island, and then they just make Phoenix here and not active. I don't know why we're not activating it. Don't know why we wouldn't have done that if we wanted to make Phoenix. I don't know what my opponent was going for here. They just decided to kind of like throw shit at the wall, and it really just didn't work. Anyway, my opponent during the draw phase, mind you, is going for the emergency, and I'm like, okay, I will activate the Wanted here. I grabbed the Diabellstar from grave. This is a mistake. Should have grabbed it from deck. Don't know why I didn't. I should have thinned the deck at least by 1, and that's just a silly mistake on my part. It's not that big of a deal, but it is technically a mistake. Anyway, they summon with the emergency, and then summon the Hydrant out, so now they have Preventer Hydrant. Grab back the Ponyx, I'm like, cool. We activate the Sanctuary, we activate the Fire King Island, popping the Ponyx, and grabbing up Garunix. Garunix is now going to special summon itself. I'm like, okay, sure, they're going to negate this, it's fine, we have the Diabellstar. And then they baffle me even more. I genuinely do not think that my opponent knows what my cards, nor their own cards, do. So there's that. Anyway, I'm going to pop Kieran. Kieran is then going to special summon a guy from my grave, and then pop a card, and they're going to go for the Raging Phoenix now. Okay. Sure. Yeah, you do you, boo. Anyway, out comes the Garunix. Hey, he's back. I popped the Extinguish. Would have liked to have hit the Contain. Contain's a little bit better here because it stops me from actually utilizing that monster for extra deck. So, Extinguish is nice, though. Like, there's that. I draw into Ash Blossom off of the Wanted Shuffleback, so that's pretty nice. But now we get to go for the Diabellstar, as well as chaining with the Poplar. Again, they allow this to resolve. It's kind of weird. I don't know what they're planning on using Contain on, but at the very least, sure, I will allow that. It's not terrible. I go for the Hita here, and they're going to negate that. I'm like, A-okay. I just send the Hita to the graveyard in order to summon the Ash here, and my opponent doesn't have anything, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna grab out. I hadn't normaled, so they flipped down with Preventer. They did have something. They had Preventer. I forgot that they hadn't used that yet. But I go for the Poplar into Anima, and hey, that's mine. So we steal there, and then I just make SP. I don't really have any other options available to me. This is just kind of the best one. And I banish the Preventer. You may be like, why are you banishing Preventer? Well, Preventer actually does have text. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can revive not revive, but special summon back one of your banished Rescue Ace monsters. So I didn't want that to be allowed, so we go for the SP, we banish the whatchamahaves and just go from there. If they play into the, if they walk into the Ash, at the very least, I get the Garunix effect, so I'm kind of banking on that. But my opponent activates a thing, and I'm like, I have to tag out here with SP, because this guy's just too big, and is going to be the death of me, which I can't allow. Then my opponent's going to try and draw a card. However, more importantly, they're going to try to shuffle back a whole bunch of cards, and I'm like, that is not allowed. I know you have access to Turbulence. You literally just got it. So I could have asked the access to Turbulence, but there's like 9 other ways that they could have potentially gotten a Turbulence. So I'm not really too stoked about potentially ashing that. But anyway, they grab the alert here, go into Link Karibo, and then they go into, I believe, Dark? Yeah, because they already used Hita. No, yeah, they had used Hita, but it got shuffled back. So I don't know why we didn't go Hita here. They decided to go for the Diabellstar. I mean, it grabs them Wanted, which is nice, but they already have the original Sin in Grave, so they just go Unicorn. Also, playing Unicorn. Bro, SP is out. They also pitch Maxi. That will come back to bite them. I think they're going to try to go for the OTK here, and just, they fail miserably. They just don't have anything. They go Turbulence here. And I'm pretty certain that the last card in hand is a Nibiru. Given the fact that when I got rid of the Promethean Princess, they had something that was activatable. So I'm almost certain that this last card in hand is a Nibiru, and I will play around that. So my opponent resets Contain, I believe, off of the Emergency. So now we have Contain to deal with and Wanted, but Wanted's not going to do anything, and the rest of the cards aren't as well. We draw Birch for turn, and I'm like, great, fantastic. I'm going to try and put back the Oak. They're going to go for the Wanted, and I'm like, A-okay, that's fine with me. That's not going to... I'm going to kill them this turn. More or less. We draw we add the Ash to our hand. And then we're going to pop a card. We pop the Ponyx in order to grab Kieran. Now this is very important. Notably, as of right now, they do have Contain. Keep that in mind. Contain is a negate. What does it negate? It just negates. That's all you need to worry about. It also negates attacks, which is kind of important. But most notably, now we have SP Little Knight to potentially dodge, as well as Kieran to potentially dodge the Contain. So there's that. And then they have a Nibiru, and that's kind of it. So that's what we're waiting for. I'm going to go for the SP Little Knight, and I'm just going to banish these two. Now, you may be like, why are you doing this? Well, I don't want the Promethean Princess to hit the field, because it becomes a lot more difficult to deal with that if it's on the field, because then I can't OTK. Anyway, sorry, Garunix activated, popping from the deck the Arvada, and Arvada is going to summon. They're going to then pop the field spell, which is Fire King Island, which is cute, because Sanctuary says no. So, let's not do that. That also gets me Kirin effect, which means I can revive the Arvada here, and they're going to contain the Kirin, whose effects are negated. It doesn't do anything. I think they thought that this may have been Extinguish, or work in a similar way as, like, Called By does, where it's like, oh, if I called by this, the thing on field isn't going to activate. No. No, Contain just prevents me from attacking with this guy. And you don't have Hydrant, so it actually doesn't do shit. Cool. Anyway, I pop their Turbulence because he's the biggest, and then we go normal summon Ash in order to grab Oak because we already have everything else. We're going to send it to Graveyard here in order to go into the Oak to bring back the Ash, because at this point, that guy on the field was just useless weight, so I was like, okay, let's get it off the field. We go into the Link Karibo here, and then I believe we go into Dark, and I'm like, give me that. What is it? Dark. And then I make a bit of a mistake here. I go with the... I go here into Promethean Princess, then I activate the effect of the Promethean Princess, bringing back the Avatar in order to go into Raging Phoenix. And remember, this Dark is the one that I stole from them, so when I actually do go for this Zelantis, it's going to put it back on their field. Now, will this matter? No, because the Zelantis OTK, if you don't know what this is the Zelantis OTK that I've talked about quite a bit, and it's crazy. Specifically because of the Raging Phoenix, which we now have. So I'm going to pop this Garunix here, because, again, I need the Arvada because of the Nibiru that I know in hand. So that's got to stick around. So out comes the Raging Phoenix, and notably, because of the card that I destroyed, it gains 2,500 attack. So he's big. Out comes the Nibiru. Cool, great. Anyway, Poplar. I'm going to pop the Poplar in my hand to negate the Nibiru. I knew the Nibiru was there, so again, Arvada was there for pretty much as soon as I could have gotten it, and that was before the 5th summon, so there you go. We just go for the Zelantis here, popping the field, and then walk in for well over lethal. That's the OTK. Zelantis, just during the battle phase, if it's co-linked, the number of co-linked monsters on the field, not just that are co-linked with it, but just co-linked monsters, it pops that many cards during the battle phase. It's great. It actually has an effect that's, like, pretty good. So yeah. My guy just threw so hard. I should not have won that game. They failed their Zelantis OTK. And that's not how it's done. Good game. Alright, now I am going first once again, but this game is going to be much different from the previous game, and you'll see why in a hot second. So we're going to start off here by grabbing up the Wanted, and my opponent is going to immediately fire the Maxi, to which I will immediately respond with the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, because of course... Yu-Gi-Oh! Why start with 5 cards when you could start with 4? Hooray. Anyway, Maxi is a great, fun, and interesting card. I'm going to normal summon this Poplar here and activate its effect, to which my opponent will activate the Arius, which is going to set a card. I fire the Maxi here. You may be like, why are you firing the Maxi here? So, in my brain, I think of what I would do as a Labyrinth player. As someone who plays Labyrinth a ton, I would go, oh, Arius. Most likely... one of two things is happening. That's a big welcome, or that is an Ariana, and the Ariana is going to get something to get their combos started, right? Like, grab up the Coup Clock effect, and then activate the effect of the like, Stovey Torby or Chandelier in hand, pitching the last card, and potentially grabbing something like a big welcome or a welcome Labyrinth to kind of go from there. That's my thought process. I'm like, cool, I'm going to go for the Maxi here. It's not like the Maxi is going to do all that much anyway, so might as well use it now. And then my opponent decides, instead of doing that, they're going to set DDD, or DDG. Different Dimension Ground. And I go, oh. Well, dang. Okay. I guess we're not sending cards to the grave. So just set one and pass. There's not really a whole lot more that I can do, but I'm like, you got 2 cards in hand. We should be fine. And of course it's Ariana. Of course it's Ariana. I have to imperm this. I don't activate the field spell. I just imperm. They go for the Arias here. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We get the Ash here anyway, off of the field spell. So there's that. But we do imperm the Ariana. That is probably the best imperm as well. And then my opponent decides to activate another Arius, and I'm like, oh, what are we going for here? And it's Welcome. It's Welcome Lab. Why? Because the last card in hand... Sorry, hold on. Let me search out my card. I search out the Ponix here. You may be confused. Don't worry, we'll talk about that in a second. But last card in hand was Labyrinth. And my opponent decides to go for Lovely here in order to pop the field spell. So first of all, no. Incorrect. Why did you do that? You need to get the... It's fine. Okay, so getting the trap to actually remove a monster is way more valuable, because then you could pop another card. So you could pop Poplar, and then you could pop Ash, and I would not have much more to go off of. And then you could reset the different dimension ground, you could reset the Welcome Lab, you could reset a whole bunch of things. But instead they decided, nah, it's fine, I don't need to do anything that's remotely smart. Anyway, my opponent walks over the Ash, and now I get to grab Fire King Sanctuary. So that's nice. Thank you. Yeah, Ponix can just special summon itself during during damage calc, which is insane, because that means very few cards can interact with that. Anyway, guess what they said? That's right. It's not Welcome Lab. The card that's actually removal and a combo starter and actually does something for this deck. It's Different Dimension Ground. Grab the Floodgate. When in doubt, Floodgate it out. Why would you grab the Floodgate here? It doesn't do anything. You have no other additional plays. You are stuck on nothing, and I have full combo on follow-up. The reason I don't understand why you would do this. I know Diabellstar is hidden information, but they know a Fire King Sanctuary. I have a Poplar on field. That is full combo. They should be aware that that is full combo. If they don't, they're about to learn. So let's learn together, shall we? So they are going to go for the Different Dimension Ground. I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. That's great and all. Ponix adds itself back. It was destroyed. Great, we're going to grab the Skyburn. We're then going to link off, and hey, that's in the wrong zone. Mine. We're going to go for the Fire King Sanctuary. I actually send to the graveyard the Sanctuary after getting the Fire King Island with the Diabellstar. So now we can go for the original Sinful Spoil in order to go for the Oak, and Oak can bring back the Poplar that had been banished. Now, this is all under DDG, by the way, and it's going to get far worse. We're going to link off here into Dark and steal their monster. Now, what am I going to do with this? Well, guess what? I have a set Imperm. So, there's that. I just go to the battle phase here, and yeah, this game's over. Of course it is. Now, here's the thing. They had two opportunities to absolutely clown on me. And again, they did not. I'm much more familiar with Labyrinth than I am this deck, because I played Fire King, but I never played Fire King Snake Eye. So I know all of the Fire King stuff, but I don't know nearly as much of how they synergize together. But the Labyrinth stuff I'm acutely aware of, and they could have removed every single card from me like that, had they just decided instead to not grab the Floodgate, and to instead actually learn that their cards, like, do stuff. But they just didn't. So, cool. Just missing the core mechanic of Lab. Yeah, just play Floodgates. It'll work. Alright, and here we are, once again, going first with a pretty good hand. This hand is kind of cracked, I'm not gonna lie. But we're gonna start off here with the Bonfire, to the which that will get promptly ashed, to the which I will go, nay, called by. Stop. You violated the law. Now, reminder, count how many hand traps, okay? That's one, okay? Activate the Ash, they have Effect Veiler. I go, no, here's Kieran. So out comes Kieran, we're going to grab the Poplar, we're going to activate the Poplar, we're going to special summon it, we're going to activate the Poplar. That's the second Veiler and the third overall hand trap. Guess what? We can still go. And we have a Maxi in hand. How happy. Anyway, so we're going to put into the back row the Ash, and then just immediately send it away with the Original Sin. Original Sin is going to go for the Ponix. Ponix is going to search out the Sanctuary, and we're going to activate the Sanctuary in order to grab up the Field Spell, and then grab Garunix, and do this line. So out comes Garunix. Garunix effect is going to pop the Arvada. Arvada is going to special summon back the Ponix, and then we're going to link off into the IP Mask Arena, and then I link those off into Promethean Princess. I decided to go for the Promethean Princess instead of the Heat Soul line here, for no real reason. We go for the Oak here with the Ash that we reborned off of the Promethean Princess, because we hadn't already used that effect. So we just send away the Sanctuary, go for the Oak, and then go for the Sunlight Wolf. Oh, no. I do actually end up going for the Heat Soul line. So we go for the Link Karibo here. We activate the effect in order to grab back the Kieran. Then we go for the Heat Soul here. We're going to activate the effect of the Heat Soul. We draw into an Ash Blossom. I send away in order to go for the Flomberg. Flomberg is then going to put into the back row the IP Masquerena, and we are going to pass. Now, this is very, like, it seems not very good, but mind you, Maxi, Kieran to trigger Flomberg. Flomberg into IP Masquerena, as well as Promethean Princess, and potentially a Link Karibo as well in Grave. So it's kind of inconspicuous, but it's actually pretty good. Ash is called by, that's why I didn't mention Ash. My opponent, during the main phase, just decides to go for the Imperm, and I'm like, okay, here's IP Masquerena. Yeah. Now, I am going to maxi them, obviously, but this was a weird choice. I decided to maxi them here because I like waiting. Anyway, my opponent goes for the... Oh. Yeah, my opponent goes for Himseti. I go for the Ash, and they concede. Ash was called by. I think we both forgot that, given how long ago that was. But, yeah, that card would have resolved. Not that it would have mattered. They would have searched out. They would have drawn a card. Coolio. They activate the effect of their continuous spell, and I just go and activate my... Masquerena to just go into SP and banish it. So it didn't really matter. But again, threw 3 hand traps. Technically 4 because they drew into the Imperm. So that was fun. Good game. Alright, so we're back with the deck, and honestly, is Fire King worth it? And the answer to that question is, yeah, pretty much. The thing with Fire King is, while it isn't necessarily the definitive only go-to version of Snake Eyes, at least at the moment, it is probably one of the best options available to you if you still want to play Snake Eyes, and it's maybe the best deck. It's either this or the Rescue Ace version, or no, it's probably just one of these two. The Kashira version is just a little bit too inconsistent now with the less Snake Eyes and the less Wanted. So there's that. But this version, as well as the Rescue Ace version, are still very strong. They end on incredible boards. They have a lot of grind game, and they have a lot going for them. So overall, I would say that these are like 2 of the best decks currently in Master Duel, if not the 2 best decks. So hard to really say that it's not worth it. However, even with that being said, there are many other decks that you can play with Fire King as an engine, or with Fire King as support. Whether that's pure Fire King, you could play it with Tri-Brigade, you could play it with any other fire-type strategy that you necessarily want to. There's a lot of really good options. Kieran is an absolutely insane card, as you may have seen. Being able to pop it in order to grab back Arvada or something else along those lines, and then just remove a card from the field is insane. So, yeah... It's just very, very strong. Also, because of the, Raging Phoenix OTK potential with Promethean Princess into Zelantis, into Raging Phoenix, into, hey, you interacted with me, die, kind of OTK line, it's very, very useful, and is now able to OTK extremely efficiently, and adding that into almost anything is very good. So, there's that. Overall, yeah, it's worth it. There are my thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. Let me know down below if you think that Fire King is worth it. I know it's extremely expensive, but let me know. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.